face this opportunity in the world, which is passing through a major crisis, I would like to state that it is necessary for all working brothers and disciples to have three things in mind if they are to work efficiently and as desired. First, disciples should know that the masters have three grades of workers. There are those doing the difficult work in the outer world. They materialize the forms through which the hierarchy can express its intentions, and they make the human contacts. There are many such disciples, and they are doing this work from their own free choice and because they have realized the immediate and coming need of humanity, and have pledged themselves to serve. There are, secondly, those who act as links between the elder brothers of the race, the masters of the wisdom who embody the divine plan and the workers mentioned above. I do not say that they act as links between the disciple and his master, for that is a direct relationship which no one may touch, particularly in the more advanced stages. The second group of working disciples, however, act as intermediaries in the working out of the plan in the world, and they hold themselves in readiness to go anywhere when requested, thus aiding with their wisdom and experience and supplementing the capacities of the field workers, conferring with them. There are several such that are being sent expressly into the field at this time to hasten the work whenever possible and to increase the magnetic attraction of those centers through which the spiritual force of the new age can flow. This is all being done preparatory to a supreme effort, which the hierarchy of masters plans to make. Should all of you in the field at this time work with complete surrender and devotion, giving of all your time and interest to the cause, it may be possible to prepare the ground in such a manner that the coming effort of the masters may prove adequate to the emergency. The third group is that of the masters themselves, and their cooperating initiates. They work primarily upon the inner side. Their activities are confined largely to the mental plane, and to the scientific use of thought. Thus they guide their workers and helpers, and influence and direct their working disciples. And the world disciples. There is at this time an inner intention of blending the Occidental and the Oriental approaches to the ancient wisdom, and to the hierarchy. Cooperation and the mutual interchange of wisdom and of knowledge are essential, if this is to be perfected. The objectives of both methods, the mystic and the occult, are the same. Second, it is necessary for working disciples at this time to appreciate the immediate emergency. There is a crisis in the affairs of men. This crisis must be viewed in terms of opportunity, and not in terms of cataclysm or catastrophe. Just as in the life of an aspirant to discipleship, there comes a life or a series of lives wherein there is direct conflict between the soul and the lower nature, so there is now an analogous crisis upon our planet. The object in both cases is that the soul may assume an increasing control over the form aspect. Looking at it from another angle, this planetary soul functioning as a hierarchy of masters is in direct conflict with the forces of evil. It should, however, be borne in mind that those forces also constitute a hierarchy of entities, constituting the material forms, and, therefore, in their place, true and correct. It is a question, in reality, of what is the objective in any particular time cycle. The present objective is that the human family should now, as a whole, do three things, and anything which militates against this is evil. 1. Manifest the nature of the soul, through the integrated personality. The nature of the soul is love and the will to good. 2. Transfer the energy, now turned to the vitalizing of the physical body, and physical creation, to the nurturing of the creative faculty upon the mental plane. Thus the entire human family will be transmuted into a dynamic, self-conscious, creative agency. 3. Usher in a period of spiritual unfoldment in every kingdom in nature. At the close of this period, the door into the animal kingdom will again be opened and opportunity offered to waiting embryonic souls. Many also, at this time, can take initiation and hence the balancing of forces at either end of the human line of unfoldment. This is to be brought about by the renewed cyclic activity of the Great White Lodge and will be carried forward through the medium of those energies, which are ushering in the new age. This crisis is upon us almost prematurely, owing to the exceedingly rapid advance made by humanity since 1850. Through the driving urge of men themselves, a new realm and a new dimension has been contacted. Humanity has loosed energies hitherto unknown and the effects are of a dual kind, producing both bad as well as good results. Third, disciples must now organize for a steady united effort. This must take the form of a closer cooperation between all groups, and a standing together in a closer relationship, thus strengthening each other's hands, and, where possible, pooling resources. It should result also in the united push forward of all spiritual and occult agencies and the carrying of the truth along all possible lines, down among the masses of men. Just as in Atlantean days, spiritual forces were subordinated to the selfish desires of men, so today, they are being subordinated to the minds and the ambitions of men and the results will be profoundly evil. The world situation today demonstrates this. For though material benefit and physical prosperity might eventually emerge from certain countries where great experiments are being undertaken, they will only exemplify the triumph of the form and will finally come to naught. Just as every human being struggles through in some one life to personality achievement, so it is among the nations. Yet at the heart of every nation lies latent the mystical soul, and eventually after dire struggle and distress all will be well. Tendencies towards materialism and towards personality achievement must, under the larger plan, and the will to good, be offset by a counter move of spiritual living, and this must be the objective of all working disciples. Let such working disciples see to it, therefore, that their love for all beings deepens and that the growth of their love comes through their tapping the group love which lies back of all world happenings. My brothers, when will the time come when the world will realize that the love aspect of the Logos as it affects the human kingdom, is focused through the inner subjective group of workers? That love is now in the stage of anchoring itself physically through the new groups, such as this group, which are in process of forming all over the world. These new groups are centers, or should be, of divine love, magnetic, constructive and pure. See to it, therefore, that your conformity to the requirement is met in the measure of your physical strength, bearing ever in mind that you are equal to more effort and to greater strain than ever before. This experiment which I have instituted, and to which you have voluntarily and willingly submitted yourselves, is one undertaken for group purposes. The hierarchy seeks to discover how sensitive groups are, as a whole, to subjective guidance and instruction, and how free the channels of communication are between the various individuals in the group and the master, and between the various groups within the ashram of the master. A master's group of disciples, upon the inner side of life, forms an integrated organism, characterized by mutual life, love and interplay. The relationships in such a group are entirely on mental and astral levels, and hence the limitations of the etheric force body and of the physical brain are not felt. Needless to say, the fundamental relation is on soul levels. The fact that the etheric body and the physical brain lie outside these basic relations where the ashram is concerned leads to greater facility in understanding and to reciprocal interplay. It is wise to remember, however, that the astral potency is far more strongly felt on the physical plane than elsewhere, and hence the major emphasis laid upon emotional desire control in all treatises on discipleship or on preparation for that state. It is not easy for the average beginner on the path of discipleship to grasp this or to see the necessity for the rules and suggestions made. For some people to conform to rule and discipline is not easy, unless it is entirely self-initiated. The suggestions which I make to you, my brothers, are only suggestions, but it is surely the part of wisdom to follow them as long as you have voluntarily put yourselves under my tuition. Your working under me has been entirely of your own free will and choice. You are subjected to no compulsion. Other types of disciples evince willingness to follow instructions, but their real difficulty consists in bringing the life into conformity with the desired rhythms. The narrow path, which all disciples have to tread, requires obedience to the ancient rules for disciples. This is given willingly and with eyes open, though no rigid adherence to such rules is ever expected. The disciple grows through intelligently adapting his life to these requirements, as far as is reasonably possible, and not by adapting the requirements to his life. Flexibility within certain limits is always needed, but that flexibility must not be set in motion by any personality inertia or mental questioning. A change in this relationship between disciples is now being made. An attempt is being set on foot to see if a group activity and interplay can now be set up upon the physical plane, involving consequently the use of the etheric body and the brain. The difficulties confronting you are, therefore, great, and I am anxious that you should realize this. Will you realize, for instance, that any differences of opinion which may occur in the relations of this group of disciples will be caused by astral brain reactions, and, therefore, must not be considered of any importance whatsoever? They must be immediately eliminated, and wiped from the slate of the mind, and of the memory, and classed as entirely personality limitations, and unworthy of hindering group integrity. This experiment, being attempted by a group within my ashram, is one in mental relations, and in soul contact, with the emphasis and attention placed basically there. The astral physical brain reactions should be regarded as non-existent, and as illusion, and should be allowed to lapse below the threshold of the group consciousness, there to die for lack of attention. This type of group work is a new venture, and unless something definitely new emerges as a result of this experiment, the time and effort are not warranted. You must not imagine that the particular line of work on which you may be engaged is the factor of main interest. It is not primarily the unfoldment of the intuition, or of the power to heal, or of telepathic efficiency which is of importance. That which counts with the hierarchy, as the ashram's function, is the establishing subjectively of such a potent group interplay and group relation that an emerging world unity can be seen in embryo. A joint power to be telepathic, or a group capacity to intuit truth, is of value, and somewhat novel. It is the functioning of groups who have the ability to work as a unity, whose ideals are one, whose personalities are merged into one forward swing, whose rhythm is one, and whose unity is so firmly established that naught can produce in the group the purely human characteristics of separation, of personal isolation, and selfish seeking, that is new. Unselfish people are not rare. Unselfish groups are very rare. Pure detached devotion in a human being is not rare, but to find it in a group is rare indeed. The submergence of personal interests in the good of the family, or in that of another person, is often to be found, for the beauty of the human heart has